End the Fed! Stop the bailout! End the Fed! Stop the bailout! End the Fed! End the Fed! End the Fed! End the Fed!
Wow, these people look pretty pissed off. I really wonder why. Hey, there's me. Wow, I look pissed off too. I wonder why I'm marching with all these people. Well, here it is. I'll explain it to you. The reason I was marching with black men, white men, Asian men, old people, young people, children, teenagers, everybody, was because we're all protesting this centralized private bank known as the Federal Reserve Bank. Well, what is the Federal Reserve? Why would 300 people spend their Saturday going out to the middle of the Federal Reserve branch in Los Angeles to protest this thing? Can it really be that bad? Well, I gotta tell you, it is. The name Federal Reserve is just a cover name. Really, the Federal Reserve Bank is a private corporation run for profit. One of many of history's opponents to the Federal Reserve Bank was Congressman Louis T. McFadden. He stated, "The regional Federal Reserve Banks are not government agencies, but are independent, privately owned, and locally controlled corporations. It is imperative that you, as an American citizen, understand how the Federal Reserve Bank works. Otherwise, there will be no chance of changing it, and we will be perpetually trapped in debt, aka slavery." Or as Henry Ford said so aptly, "It is well that the American people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." So let's start a revolution. Here is how the Federal Reserve System works. So here we have the Federal Reserve Bank. And over here we have the US government. And these little guys down here are private banks which lend to private citizens and small businesses and things of that nature. Now what the Federal Reserve does is lend money to the US government and the private banks. It lends money to the US government to pay for wars and building roads and other things like that, and to pay off the national debt. So when this money is created and lended to the US government, it comes with a certain percentage of interest attached to it. As I said before, this money is lended, so it is meant to be paid back with the interest attached to it. So one could ask, where does the US government get the money to pay for the debt that is built up from the private Federal Reserve Bank? Now this is one of the crazier things about this whole predicament, is that the only way that we can pay off the debt for the debt we have from the Federal Reserve is by borrowing more money with debt attached to it from the Federal Reserve again. So then an interesting thing happens. Here we have a graph with decades on the bottom, the 90s, 2000s, 10s, and so on, and on the other side we have the national debt in trillions of dollars. So one can easily deduce from this information that if the only way to pay off the debt is by taking money that has debt attached to it, you eventually get an exponential rise in the national debt. And therefore all this talk of paying off the national debt is really irrelevant, because it's impossible based on the monetary system that we have right now. Now this is the craziest thing of the whole thing. Where does the Federal Reserve get all this money that it has that it can pay off entire countries and private banks all around the world? This is going to sound crazy, but it's true. Any central private bank creates the most desired commodity in any country, its currency, and it creates this out of nothing. It's imaginary. The only thing backing it is your faith in it. And with that power, they can bring entire countries to their knees. So let's go over this once more. The Federal Reserve Bank over here lends money to the US government over here. This money creates a substantial amount of debt, which in turn the US government owes to the Federal Reserve Bank. And the only way to pay off this debt is to borrow from the Federal Reserve again. So then we have an exponential rise in national debt, which can lead to things like hyperinflation. How can we end this neo-feudalism? Well, I would say right now, in the situation we're in, the best thing you could do is alarm the public and let them know what is going on. Just know that this can be done, and it has been done. Andrew Jackson, one of our early presidents, spent his entire candidacy trying to kill the privatized, centralized banks that were trying to get a hold of the country back then. And in fact, he did. And it took almost 80 years for them to come back. We still had a centralized bank for these 80 years, but the money did not have debt attached to it, and the money was created and regulated by the government and not a private entity. The best thing that you can do is share this information with other people. And you can find more information about this on endthefed.us and campaignforliberty.com, or just Google End the Fed. So if you'd like to help in the movement of awakening other people around you to this corrupt system that we have, you can come to the next End the Fed rally, which is happening in 2009 on March 14th.